Welcome to this week's episode. We are going to do another hot topic. And today I'm going to talk more about Ozempic, Semaglutide, Wegovy. There's all different names for the semaglutide. And what's interesting is it's such a hot topic now, presently, where these peptides, I don't even want to call them drugs or pharmaceuticals because although they are pharmaceuticals, they are peptides. So they're different than what you would think about with most pharmaceuticals. So peptides or protein. And what they do is they mimic the GLP-1 that is a hormone that's made in the stomach. So they are what are called a GLP agonist. So they stimulate the body to produce GLP-1. So when I first heard about these drugs, which was quite a while ago, I was thinking they were GLP-1 antagonists. And I thought, well, how is that working? So it's an agonist, not an antagonist. So it's actually stimulating the production of GLP-1. But this has been the, most recent blockbuster drug. There are over 60,000 scripts written a day for Ozempic, Wegovy. So why it's so popular? These drugs have been around, or these semaglutide, these protein peptides have been around for over 30 years. And it's just more recently that the indication has changed. So they originally came out for type 2 diabetics, and I'll talk about why that is, but there is a new indication now, and that is for people who are overweight or have a BMI of over 27 and have some sort of other comorbidity. So you don't have to just have type 2 diabetes anymore. And the pharmaceutical companies have basically rebranded these peptides. So now, pharmaceutical companies, of course, are always looking for ways to make a buck. And, that's the bottom line. So it's just interesting how these have come so much to the forefront recently when really they've been around for several decades. But I want to talk about, just kind of all the facts about Ozempic and Wegovy and semaglutide. I get questions pretty much on the daily about this. Like, what are your thoughts? Should I start this? I'm type 2 diabetic. My doctor is pushing for me to start Wegovy or Ozempic, or, my doctor doesn't know how to help me lose weight, is pushing for Ozempic. I don't really want to start it. What are your thoughts? Those are the main questions that I get. And there are people on all sides of the fence here. And I don't take one stance or another with every single person. I'm not like, yes, you absolutely should start semaglutide or Ozempic, or no, absolutely not. This, that is the last thing you should do. I think that there are, it should really be on a case by case, looking at every single person, and should be a personalized decision. And that's why I'm here to just kind of give you some of the facts that you may have not thought about, or some other alternatives. And I will be doing a live webinar in the next couple of weeks. I have live webinars on September 6th and September 13th, and I will be covering Ozempic as a topic. The webinar is called Cravings, Ozempic, and Glucose. Oh my. So I'll be covering all of those topics, like why we get cravings, why Ozempic is so popular. Am I a good candidate for it? What can I do as a natural alternatives? And then really talking about blood sugar and glucose and why that is the basis for insulin resistance and how we can get those blood sugars stabilized. So there's a link in the show notes. So please sign up for that. And I hope to see you live. It'll also be I'll be following the webinar up with a live Q&A. So bring your questions and make sure you are pre-registered, because I'm only sending replay links to those who have registered. I really have no other way to know that you wanted to be part of the webinar. So even if you can't make it, the times don't work for you, register yourself so then you can at least get a replay link. Because I totally get it. Not everybody is going to be able to make the times that I am able to do the webinar. So let's talk about we're going to be talking about like the results of Ozempic and the mechanisms. Like, once you kind of know the mechanism behind it, it might stimulate your decision, or it might help your decision. Like it might say, okay, this is a good idea for me. This isn't a good idea for me. So the results after 1 year, looking at multiple studies that have been done around these peptides, after 1 year, 63% lost greater than 5% of their body weight. So this is after 1 year, and this is 63%. So 2 out of 3 people are going to lose about, at least 5% of their body weight, which, it's something. I will say that. So say you weigh 200 pounds, 5% is going to be about 10 pounds. So you're now, after a year on Ozempic, you're now down to 190. And then after 27% after 1 year lost more than 10% of their body weight. So that same, 27, 1 in 3 people are going to lose about 10% of their body weight, which would be 20 pounds. So it does work. I will say that. But I have to argue the fact, like I have students come through Low Insulin Academy and they're following up with me all the time with their weight loss. And it is far more than 5% in a year in almost all circumstances, if they are, and more than 10% as well, if they are following the guidelines that I suggest and I recommend. And especially when they're coming through my live programs with me and they can work with me one-on-one throughout the program and then get in touch with me as needed, they're doing way better than that. But this is all encompassing. And so the thing about these studies that I think is interesting is that a lot of the people who are put on these peptides or semaglutide, they aren't educated as to how to make lifestyle changes. They're basically just given the injection and turned loose, right? So I think if they were given the injection and they were put on a lifestyle program, such as Low Insulin Academy or a program similar to it, they would do so much better. And that's where I think our system is failing. A lot of these people who get put on these peptides is that they're just not educated. The physicians, providers who are giving the injections have no idea about nutrition. They're just looking for something that's going to work for their patients, right? Which you can't condemn the doctors for. I mean, it's like these people, a lot of people are very ill, have diabetes, have high blood pressure, have severe insulin resistance, and the physicians just aren't equipped with the knowledge to reverse insulin resistance like an expert like I am. And so this is really the best case. They don't have a lot of time with their patients. They got very, very little nutrition education, little education about insulin resistance. They don't know what insulin resistance is. They don't know how to test for it. And so these semaglutides are very popular because in a lot of circumstances, it can be somewhat of a quick fix for people. But like I said, it's a GLP-1 agonist. So it's stimulating the hormone GLP-1 in the stomach. So what does that do? Like, why would we even want to do that? So GLP-1 is released at the end of a meal and it signals fullness. So it's kind of similar to leptin. I'm not saying it's like it's the same as leptin, but it's kind of, has a similar effect. So it signals fullness. It happens at the end of the meal. So what this does is this hormone then, tells the body to release insulin. We know know that. We know after we eat, and we eat a lot of carbohydrates, especially, that we need to release insulin, because that tells the body that there's energy coming and it needs to deal with it. It either needs to, burn it, store it, get it into the cell, whatever it is. So that's what the GLP-1 does. It starts the digestive process. It starts reducing, it starts the digestive process. So it starts, like secreting all of the gastric juices. It starts the churning of the stomach. It does a lot of different things. And so it gets the digestive process started. But what semaglutide does too is it also reduces gastric emptying. So the food that you're eating is sitting in the stomach for a longer period of time. It also decreases gastric motility, which I'll get to in a minute too, that can cause some pretty severe symptoms for some people on these peptides. It also lowers acid secretion, which gives you less stomach acid. This can be very problematic over time, because when you decrease your stomach acid, you get into trouble with digesting protein. I see this all the time with people who are on PPI medications for gastric reflux. The PPIs will momentarily reduce the gastric or the acid in the stomach, and might give you some, take your symptoms of reflux away, the burning, the acid, whatever, momentarily. But in the long run, it's creating a disaster of a problem, because it's reducing stomach acid overall over time. And you need that stomach acid in order to increase pepsin, which then that signals your body to break down protein. So you can see, like, once you start messing with human nature and the human body and what is natural, usually there are going to be some long-term consequences. So again, I'm not persuading you one way or another. I'm just telling you what happens when you take the GLP-1 agonist, whether it's Ozempic, Wegovy, or whatever semaglutide that you're taking. So again, it helps to make you feel full, helps you to start releasing insulin. It starts the digestive process, but it also reduces gastric emptying. So you feel full longer. The food hangs out in your stomach longer. You have decreased gastric motility and decrease stomach acid secretion. So it's very, very popular because it does work. So it's popular because it will help stimulate insulin, right? And, that's what there are other targeted diabetes medications that do this, but it also helps to reduce blood sugars because it increases insulin, right? So if we get more insulin, that's going to help to decrease blood sugar and get more of the blood sugar out of circulation. So it also decreases your appetite for all of the reasons why I said. And a lot of times you can have all of these side effects, these, which are positive and very attractive. You want more, you want to have more insulin sensitivity, you want to reduce blood sugar, you want to reduce appetite, but you don't have to have a whole lot of responsibility with changing your lifestyle. I don't want to generalize everybody. I know that there are many people on these peptides. I don't even want to call them medications, on these peptides that have worked very, very hard at their lifestyle. They have done all the things. They have done all of the things that I've suggested. They've changed their nutrition. They've become more active. They've implemented weight training. They are trying their best to get good rest and sleep. They are trying to manage their stress, and they still are really struggling. For those folks, I think that this can be, this might be worth a try. But there are plenty of people out there who just see this as one more quick fix, right? Like, I can just take this injection. I can keep eating my crappy food, my crappy diet. I can eat the standard American diet. I'll just eat less of it because now I'm not hungry, and I get results. And that as a practitioner, as a provider, as, as a voice in this insulin resistant space, That's what irritates me about the whole 60,000 scripts a day for these peptides. So those who actually change their lifestyle, maybe implement a program to go along with this, those are the people where I think there can be some merit. But if you're not willing to change your lifestyle, this is just basically a man-made peptide that's going to interfere with your response to food. You're not learning proper lifestyle management, proper lifestyle modification. So maybe we go from eating 3,500 calories of crappy food a day down to 2,000 calories of crappy food a day because the GLP-1 agonist is doing what it's doing for you to reduce your food intake. So really, are you improving your health? You might see some weight loss, but is your actual health improving? You might be improving your insulin resistance, which is good. We want to reverse insulin resistance and get more insulin sensitive, but are you actually learning how to modify your lifestyle, and are you getting healthier? So then what's going to happen when you go off your semaglutide, your Wegovy, your Ozempic? Because chances are your pharmaceutical company, if it's covering the scripts now at $1,000 a month or $1,200 a month, chances are it's not going to want to keep covering these for you, or you're going to develop some side effects or some symptoms that you're not going to want to stay on this injection forever. So, the injection is only going to work as long as you're on it. Once you take away the injection, that's a man-made, semaglutide is a man-made peptide, a man-made hormone. It doesn't have the exact same effects as GLP-1 does. So again, when we look at the human body, like nothing's random, right? Like everything is perfect. Everything is made to work in perfect balance and perfect harmony. It's just things that we have put into our body, whether it's terrible food, processed foods, chemicals of some sort, heavy metals, mold, some kind of toxicity, bad water quality, whatever it is, however that interference is getting into your body, that endocrine disruptors, whatever it is, that's just messing up that normal physiology. And so all mammals, humans and all mammals are here. We all have a need and desire to eat. We all have appetites, right? Like that's what we do every day. And I've talked about this before in other episodes, but we are made to have appetites and go to seek out food, right? Like that's just part of the human experience. And unfortunately, we as humans really love sugar and salt and harmful fats. I shouldn't say we love harmful fats, but that is what's in our processed food to make them taste really good and irresistible and want us, keep us addicted and coming back for more. So, we're supposed to be eating every day. We eat food. Anything from the time we start eating and chewing, there's saliva produced, there's enzymes produced, there's hydrochloric acid and peptides like GLP-1. We have motility. Then that to help move the food through our digestive tract, we have digestion and absorption. We have to empty our stomach. We have to move everything through the small intestine. Things have to be absorbed properly. That's how we get our energy. We don't just eat food and bam, it turns into energy. There's so much that happens from the time we eat food until there's actually energy produced, everything gets to our tissues that we need to, until the detoxification process where we have a bowel movement, right? Like so much needs to happen in that time. So processed food that's the biggest thing that has ruined this perfect normal physiology. I mean, it's just, there's what you put into your body is going to affect everything, right? It's going to affect your mood and, how you're dealing with energy, and what types of food you're eating is going to dictate the hormones that are released. And it's just crazy to think about everything that needs to happen. But now we add semaglutide, which is the man-made form, man-made peptide, or a man-made protein that is, again, being an agonist or a precursor or stimulating the production of GLP-1, which is the natural human hormone that is produced in response to when we eat meals. So our autonomic nervous system is always, playing a role with this as well. It's kind of going in the background. We still need the nutrients. It's just the semaglutide is kind of messing with that autonomic nervous system. So we just don't have that desire to eat. Our appetite is suppressed, which sounds really cool, right? It's like, oh, I don't need to eat. I don't need to eat as much. I don't think about food. And that can be very, very freeing. I totally get that. And I totally respect that. I was in a place where I thought about food all the time for most of my lifetime. I would say in the last 5 years, since I've implemented low carb and reversed my insulin resistance, is when I've really experienced food freedom. And so what I'm getting at is programs like mine, where I teach you a low insulin lifestyle. I teach you low carb. I teach you how to balance the hormones and to resolve your insulin resistance that is driving so many of these issues, is basically the natural way of Ozempic or Wegovy. Like, it might take longer, but balancing out insulin, bringing insulin levels down, that makes you more insulin sensitive. It reduces your appetite. It gives you food freedom. It corrects the appetite control centers. There's so much that goes into this. And I get that the, Ozempic and Wegovy are very attractive because you can basically just take these injections and not have to put the work in. You don't have to do the fasting or intermittent fasting or, time or time controlled eating. You don't have to, or, a lot of people don't. I mean, you definitely accelerate your weight loss and results if you implement the lifestyle to go with it. But I get why it's attractive, because, and I think a lot of people have just tried so many programs and weight loss attempts that are based around caloric restriction, that this seems really attractive because they failed at so many things that they just think, well, this is finally my answer. And, the semaglutide has been hyped up to be the answer. And again, I'm not saying like, yes, you absolutely should go on Ozempic or Wegovy, or no, absolutely not. Like, I'm just, again, presenting kind of the middleman. Like, there are certain people who I think could do well with it, and certain people who, it's like, if you haven't done all the lifestyle things, you haven't worked on your insulin resistance, you haven't worked to modify your lifestyle, there's no reason to think that when you go off the GLP-1 agonist, the semaglutide, whatever it is you want to call it, the peptides, everything's going to rear its ugly head again, because you have not changed your lifestyle. You have not figured out how to do naturally what you are doing with these injections. And so that is my plea here, is just to, before you start injecting yourself with these peptides, please, like, try all the lifestyle modifications. And I think that there's very few people who have given intermittent fasting and, throwing in some fasting protocols and going low carb to reverse insulin resistance. There are very few people who have actually followed through with that and followed through with the actual protocols that I lay out in my programs for weight loss and reversing insulin resistance. They're just not willing to put in the work. And those who have almost always see results. Like, I have not worked with a student who had absolutely no results after implementing what I teach in Low Insulin Academy. So it's just what what your goals are and how you want to, live your life long term. But a couple of things to think about. If you do start a GLP-1 agonist or a semaglutide, is that you are going to decrease your gastric juices, which again can be problematic for things, reasons why I already stated. It can be very detrimental to our protein digestion, but it can also be detrimental to our immune system, because that gastric juice is there, that is kind of our first line of defense for immunity, right? It's like any bacteria, viruses that get into the stomach and don't belong there are killed by that gastric juice and that gastric acid. So if we're manipulating that with semaglutide, that can be problematic. And over time, you might have, a faultier immune system in response. You also decrease the motility. And so this is a side effect that's becoming more and more common, that even I would say a year ago, you didn't hear much about, but now with just how popular these peptides are, you're hearing more and more about it. So it reduces the motility in the stomach, which the motility is what, that churning and the mixing of the food, that's normal. Like that's what your stomach does. It kind of churns your food up, moves it. And this starts the digestion process. So if you're decreasing the motility, your digestion isn't going to be the same. You're not emptying your stomach at the same rate as you would have normally. So that food is just sitting there, and it's sitting there for longer periods of time. Yes, that might make you feel full longer, but there's lots of side effects. And this is where most of the side effects come in, because it does, decrease the motility. It decreases the emptying of the stomach as well. So the rate in which those things happen is changed when you take these peptides. So side effects, about 20 to 40% of people experience nausea. And that's the most common side effect, is nausea. And some people are so nauseous that they can't even stomach any food at all or think about any food whatsoever. And this goes on for days, weeks, until it wears off. About 9% experience vomiting, and sometimes this vomiting can be pretty pronounced and again can go on for days, lead to malnourishment, lead to dehydration, which can be pretty scary. About 8% experience diarrhea. And one of the more serious side effects that has come into play recently is gastroparesis. And when you think about it, this makes sense. Okay, so this is basically paralysis of the stomach. Again, the scary stuff. And you might say, oh, well, that's a pretty small side effect, but if this is happening to you, this is not good. Like this is basically your stomach is paralyzed. It's not doing work. Food is just sitting there. I mean, I've heard of people who have had food in their stomach for like a week, like days to a week, just sitting there because the stomach is basically paralyzed. Or, they take one bite of food, they're vomiting because the stomach is so compromised. It just can't even handle the food digestion. So the paralysis of the stomach can be very, very scary, and not something that anybody is going to want to deal with. Again, not real common, but becoming more common as these peptides, proteins are, prescribed more and more often. And then another thing is, a lot of people who are seeing these side effects, it's not like you just stop the injection and everything goes away. Many people are seeing these side effects for months to even years after they come off of the semaglutide, the Wegovy, the Ozempic, for reasons why I'll go over now. Is every hormone in our body has a half-life, and a half-life is basically how long it takes for something like a hormone, after it's secreted, how long it takes for that hormone to go down to half of what was secreted. So say you secrete some insulin after you eat carbohydrates. How long does it take for the insulin to go down to half of the amount that you secreted? that would be the half-life. So every hormone has a half-life in the body because we don't want to be secreting hormones all the time, right? Usually there's a counter hormone to every hormone that's secreted. There's usually a counter hormone to balance that out. Like with insulin, it's glucagon. When insulin is high, glucagon is low. When glucagon is high, insulin is low. And there's hormones that counter each other, right? To balance each other out, because we don't want real high levels of one hormone over the other. So for GLP-1, remember, is the natural hormone that we produce as humans after we eat meals that helps us to, feel full and all of the things that I went over in the beginning of the podcast. Semaglutide is the man-made version of GLP-1. Okay. So it's not the same. It's a man-made version. So I found this astounding, and this is new to me. This is why I like to keep, I'm doing another podcast on Ozempic and, GLP-1 agonists, because I'm learning as we go too. Like there's just been so many questions lately. I used to get very few questions about Wegovy. It just wasn't that popular. So now that everybody, it's just the new blockbuster pharmaceutical, I just feel like I need to do my due diligence as I come across more and more literature and more facts about it. I want to present it to you. So the half-life for GLP-1, the human hormone that is made, is 2 minutes. So this is not a hormone that's meant to be in the human body, in circulation for a long time. So say you secrete an amount of GLP-1 at the end of your meal. 2 minutes later, that same amount of GLP-1 is cut in half. 4 minutes later, that amount that's left is now cut in half, and you're at 25% of that hormone 4 minutes later, and so on and so on. So after about 10 minutes, that GLP-1 is basically gone. It's a very short-acting hormone, short-term hormone. So I found this astounding. The half-life of semaglutide, which is the man-made version of GLP-1, is 1 week. Oh my gosh, it's so crazy. Like this, I just found fascinating, and that it could be that much different. So we've gone from a half-life from GLP-1 of 2 minutes to a half-life of semaglutide being 1 week. So what does that mean? It's like, okay, Shanna, well, okay, what does that even mean? Like, why do you even care? That just means like we're not clearing semaglutide. The half-life is so much different. It's basically permanent, somewhat permanent in the human body. If you just, if you're getting injections every week or every 2 weeks, if the half-life is at 1 week, and that's why you have to keep getting the injections. If the half-life is at 1 week and you're getting another injection 2 weeks later, or even 1 week later, you still have half of the original dose in your body. So I hope go back a few minutes and listen to that again. If you're not really getting it, like, okay, I don't even really understand. We're just saying like a short-term hormone, it's meant to be short-term, is hanging out in the body for very long periods of time. That's where these side effects are, coming into play. Like when we look at gastroparesis, you can see why that it makes sense that it's becoming more and more apparent, because the semaglutide just isn't cleared the same way. The half-life is so much different than the natural hormone GLP-1. So that is interesting to think about. And remember, programs like my Low Insulin Academy, which actually opens up on September 5th live. This is the first time I've done a live version of Low Insulin Academy in 6 months. So get yourself on the wait list. There is a link in the show notes. Go to fasttoheal.info/LIA waitlist. That will get you on the wait list for when enrollment opens on September 5th. If you're on my wait list, you get a discount to enroll in the program. My program is going to do the same thing as the GLP-1, or not, sorry, the semaglutide, the Wegovy, the Ozempic. It's going to help you to bring those hormones back in balance. But the difference is I teach you long-term lifestyle solutions so that you're not, on this program for 8 weeks and then all of a sudden you're off and, you have no answers as to do this lifestyle and reverse insulin resistance in a sustainable way. I also encourage people who are on Ozempic, Wegovy, and doing well with it, because a lot of people do well with it, and I applaud you. But I really encourage you to do a lifestyle program with it. Implement what I teach you. So when you come off, because chances are you're going to come off, you're not going to spend $1,200 a month on these injections forever. Your insurance company is not going to want to do that, or you'll probably develop some sort of side effects at some point. You have the lifestyle tools and strategies in place for you to successfully keep your weight off. And so the other thing that I've reviewed in other podcasts is that a lot of people lose muscle mass and lean tissue when they're losing weight. And that's somewhat normal. When you do a weight loss program, anywhere from like 6 to 10% is going to be lean tissue, because we do lose some vasculature that needs to, happen when you lose weight. But with semaglutide, it's like 30% lean tissue, which is way too much. And that's why if you do a program like Low Insulin Academy in conjunction with it, at least I teach you the proper nutrition, the proper exercise, how to manage your insulin levels so that, again, you're losing primarily fat, not muscle mass. But you have to be open to changing your lifestyle. Like, there's just no getting around it. You can't live a junky lifestyle and eat standard American diet, take an injection, and just think everything's going to be rainbows and unicorns. Like, you need to put some work in. And if you're not ready for that, I don't suggest joining my program, because joining Low Insulin Academy, you need to put the work in. You need to understand what you're doing, and you need to be willing to modify your lifestyle. It's not hard. The concepts aren't hard. They're very simple, but you have to be willing to absorb what I'm saying, implement the strategies, and run with it, and live a healthy lifestyle that is sustainable. So what's interesting, again, about the side effects, and there are many to semaglutides, and I do get, like, again, people who've done it all, like, this can be an answer for you, even if it's short term, even if you do it for 6 months or a year, just to kind of get that insulin resistance better managed and then come off and see how you do. When you're having side effects like the nausea, the vomiting, the diarrhea, you're told to eat a bland, low-fat diet, low in fiber, like white rice, white bread, crackers, like bland, no fiber. Like, how does that help? Like, how is that getting you healthy? And so again, the conventional medicine is quick to write prescriptions for the semaglutide, the peptides, but they don't give you the lifestyle tools. The last thing you should be eating when you are on these injections is white rice, white pasta, white bread. Like, that just makes no sense whatsoever. That's just a blood sugar nightmare. So these problems are lifestyle problems, right? Like, most of, like diabetes is a lifestyle problem. Most weight problems are lifestyle problems. I'm not saying all. I know that there is in some cases, there's some very stubborn weight loss resistance, but most of the time it's your lifestyle that has led up to all of these issues. And it's the lifestyle that is going to fix it. Like, you cannot fix the underlying issue and just take these injections and expect everything to resolve itself. You have to do the lifestyle along with it. So weight rebound is common if you come off of the injections. The injections, the semaglutide, the peptides do have a lessening effect over time also. So that's another thing to think about. Like you might see a pretty substantial amount of weight loss in the first couple of months, but it's a lessening effect over time. And again, if you don't have the lifestyle tools, strategies in place, when you stop the medications, you're most likely going to gain the weight back, and you're going to gain the weight back in body fat. So now you have a worse body composition than when you started with. And that just makes me so sad, because this can all be avoided. So again, we need to think about lifestyle, and you know, sometimes too, your insurance company will pay for the injections for a couple of months, and all of a sudden they just drop you and you're like, oh, sorry. Like now you need to pay out of pocket. And that's like so detrimental to people too, because again, maybe they're seeing some good things happen, and all of a sudden they don't have any kind of lifestyle modifications in place. And it can just be a very sad scenario. So we're really the only mammals who have parted ways with nature, right? I mean, look at the lifestyles that we live. Most of us are inside working in Wi-Fi, no sunlight. We have shoes on. We have we're in air conditioning, we're in heat. We have no connection with the earth anymore and what's natural. We go to the grocery store, we buy crappy food that isn't even natural. We're under fluorescent lights all day. We're not under natural lights, natural sunlight. And I'm not saying I'm perfect with this either. I mean, I spend a lot of my day on the computer because that's how I reach you all, but you bet your butt I'm outside as much as possible. I'm walking around. I live in Wisconsin, so I can only walk on my grass about 6 months out of the year. But whenever possible, I'm trying to make connections with the earth. I'm eating natural food. Like, we've created our own disease processes as humans, 100%. And so, you know, so many of us just want to mask the symptoms, and our pharmaceutical companies do nothing but mask symptoms and make trillions of dollars doing so. So again, you got to go back to lifestyle. Join Low Insulin Academy if you really want to get a good handle on your insulin resistance. I teach you everything you need to know to reverse this chronic lifestyle disease. There's optional metabolic testing inside as well. Lifestyle is your choice. Nobody's forcing on you what you do for your day-to-day lifestyle, right? So you need to take control of your own health. You can't expect other people to fix you. A program like mine can, yes, definitely point you toward how to do so. Like, what are the strategies? What do I need to do to get there? But I can't hold your hand all day long and say, okay, this is what we're having for this meal, and this is what we're having for this meal. Like, no, I can't. I'm with you. I give you support in the program, but you have to do the work. You have to decide in your head that you're worth it and that you're going to take control of the situation. You're not going to rely on somebody else. So number one, we need to eat real food. We need to emphasize protein. We need to get rid of seed oils and focus on healthy, natural fats. We need to eat for nutrients and nutrition and protein. That will help us preserve our muscle mass. That will help, you know, daily movement. Again, like, humans were not made to sit all day. They weren't made to sit under artificial lighting and have no contact with the sun or the earth or natural foods. So I really implore you to enroll in Low Insulin Academy, or, you know, if it's not my program, something that's similar. I just know it's inside my program, and I know it will teach you everything you need to know to naturally get your hormones back into balance, especially if you have insulin resistance. So go get yourself on the wait list, get signed up for my upcoming free live. These are live webinars. I don't do live webinars very often. I admit it. I have 3 kids. I mean, I just can't, especially over the summer. So you don't get me live on webinars very often. So get there live, bring your questions. I will answer questions about Low Insulin Academy as well, if you have questions about that. But I hope that this at least got you thinking, because I know that there's a lot of people contemplating, like, okay, well, are the injections a good fit for me. And for some people they can be. Again, I'm not here to say yes or no. Like I think Ozempic, Wegovy are very personal choices, and they're very, individualized. Like there's just not one answer for every one person. But if you are going to do these, you get insurance coverage or whatever, please, please, please manage your lifestyle, modify your lifestyle along with it, or you're just setting yourself up to fail. So hope you learned some new things about Ozempic. I'll be back next week with another episode, but hope that you gain some knowledge and you can make the decision that is right for you.